This is Bible School Radio, KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, KYJC, Commerce, and KMWC, Bethany. On the web at kdkr.org and on all your devices with the Live 365 app. Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, the top 10 questions you need to answer for a successful retirement plan, Part 2. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question, I want to invite you to go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. There's a place on a link on the bar at the top of the page. It says Ask a Question. Just click through, ask your question. You can email it to me. We do get those questions answered. If you need to set up some time on a phone conference to talk a little bit more about your questions, because sometimes it takes more than just an email, feel free to pick a time and we'll make that happen as well. Very committed. We'll talk a little bit about this here in a minute, but very committed to getting your questions answered, all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. One of the things I like to do, and I just get all of these articles and notices in my inbox from different periodicals that have to do with the financial advising business. And I like to share some of this with you so that you understand why things happen the way they do when it comes to financial advisors. What types of companies are out there? What types of plans? What type of an advisor are you looking at? Are you paying too much in fees? I mean, just on and on and on. There's a lot of things I think that you should know. Well, this one is about our friends at Wells Fargo. We talk a lot about Wells Fargo, but this is just I think they represent overall what I've been talking about and what the broker-dealers and brokerage companies are doing right now, which is making it more desirable for the financial advisor to go after richer clients, and to make it less desirable to go pick up clients who have maybe they have lesser of net worths. And when I'm talking where the line is, it really depends on the company. This one is only like $250,000. So, everybody below that's going to be kind of out of luck. But let me read some of this to you. Wells Fargo Brokerage Unit is making it simpler, for wealth advisors to qualify for higher compensation while trimming payouts for smaller accounts as part of its 2025 Advisor Compensation Plan. They announced changes are modest, aligning with the industry trend where national brokerage firms or wirehouses, where do I get that from, adjust compensation annually with minimal disruptions to avoid discontent within their advisor ranks. It says, Wells Fargo, like other firms in the wealth management sector, is nudging advisors to focus on clients with larger portfolios. I love how they write this and publish this from standpoint, they're just encouraging them to go along with it. They're encouraging them to turn people away. I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of ridiculous. Advisors will earn a flat 10% payout on households with assets under $250,000. And says previously the firm paid 20% on assets between 100 and 250. Now they're really lowering it, and 10% for those below 10,000. But that is just a good example of what's happening all over the industry. Now here's another one that's really interesting, and it leaves me scratching my head a little bit because I'm always fascinated with how companies charge fees and what clients are really getting for it. This one's with Edward Jones. I guess this is the time of the year that they're announcing all of this. It says the broker-dealer based in St. Louis, Edward Jones, also launched its first proprietary separately managed account programs, or SMA, that offer securities from the firm's large cap U.S. stock focus list. So what they have two different offerings if you're an Edward Jones client. If you have over 250,000, this one is actually the SMAs is nothing more than the ability for an investor to put money into a portfolio of specially picked stocks that their advisory board or their top-notch traders are saying this is what you should be in. So you supposedly can't get this list of stocks anyplace else except for Edward Jones. And they call them separately managed accounts. Now, here's what's interesting to me. I've seen the amount of the percentage that they charge on these for fees. It's pretty high when you look at the fees, and this is supposed to be for clients who have a minimum of 50,000. So what they do is this SMA for the advisor is easy to do. It's a profit center for the advisor. The advisor can charge a fee against it. The advisor is really not doing anything, and I don't believe that there's a whole lot of management going on. What they once again make all the fees make sense. Could be wrong because I don't have all the fine print in front of me, but this is just just pretty consistent what I've seen. So it makes me wonder about. Okay, so here's your options. You can put your money in an SMA, separately managed account program, pay higher fees to do so, or we'll just say high fees to do so, or you can put your money in an actively managed mutual fund, probably pay lesser amount of fees. Now, why would you put money in either one of those? You would want to put money in either one of those because of the profit potential of the SMA or the actively managed mutual fund. Now, the benchmark for being successful at cutting-edge performance is beating the S&P 500 or the stock market. So here's what I don't understand. Why does it make sense to put money in something that's managed, the SMA, separately managed account? It's just like a mutual fund, but it's a portfolio of stocks that do different things, versus putting your money, and if the goal is to beat the S&P 500 or the stock market, why wouldn't and a very high percentage of the time these accounts do not beat the index, do not beat the stock market. Why wouldn't you just put the money in an index fund that mimics the stock market? Sure, you're never going to beat the stock market, but you're going to do pretty much what the stock market's doing. I mean, that's what it's designed. Now, there could be a situation where that doesn't happen, but the higher percentage of the time it does, because that's what it's designed to do, an index fund, where the fee is so barely even minimal. I mean, it's like 2 cents on every dollar. It's unbelievably small because it's a passive investment. it's not really managed. I would suggest that these separately managed account programs are somewhat the same. Once again, I could be wrong, but even if not, they're pretty close to doing so. So it just comes back to one of the things we've also been talking about is, what are you paying fees for? And there's 4 things to know, just as just to go back over this. Because there's a real push now for fees being charged in investments. And the question that you've got to have as an investor is, if I move my money from where it is right now to where it will be, what's the advantage? Or if there's not an advantage, why would I want to make a parallel move just to pay higher fees? That's the first thing. The second thing is that if they say, well, we rebalance and reallocate the accounts once a year at the end of the year, I personally believe that should go along with whatever you got set up with your investment advisor. You shouldn't have to pay for that. You got to ask the question, are we charging a fee for doing nothing? I looked at a bond portfolio a few months back that someone gave me to look at. And it was one of these separately managed accounts. And by the time everybody started taking their fees, and by the time the separately managed account was at the end of the year, I mean, it was a pathetically low return. I mean, that you could have gotten way more in a money market account. And there wasn't any management going on. Then the last thing that you need to know about fees is if you have a financial advisor and they call you and say, hey, I want to talk to you about our new fee program, be very careful, because that is a dangerous way to start on a learning curve. It is quite the learning curve when it comes to managing money and charging a fee for it. So you want to be careful with that. As long as you're supervised and you feel very comfortable with that, maybe it's okay, but just be aware of that. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. We are up against a break. Stick around. I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Scripture is clear. God's plans never fail. He knows all things, and everything is under His control. But if that's true, what's the point of praying? Is it possible to change God's mind? Well, join us Friday on Focal Point when Mike Fabarez helps us reconcile our prayers and God's sovereignty. It's another edition of Ask Pastor Mike, Friday on Focal Point.
Focal Point, weekday mornings at 8:30, here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
Hi, I'm Jill Taylor, inviting you to join me each Saturday morning at 11 o'clock for Choose Life Radio. You'll hear people from across America sharing their stories of faith, forgiveness, redemption, and restoration. Choose Life Radio will encourage you to fully appreciate the gift of life. You may also find help for you or a friend in need. So please join me Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock right here on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Hey, listen, if you got a question for me, you can go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Send it up, and I will get it answered for you. That's a way to get information all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. I was going to talk about this new financial planning service through here's what they're doing. And this could either end up being a really good move or a very expensive move or a very bad move. Okay, so here's the deal. From best I can tell, if you have $250,000 in an advisory program account, which is a fee-based account with Edward Jones, they're starting next year a new financial planning service through a one-time financial plan offered to clients through its headquarters. And let's see, the planning fee will be $3,600. Now, I've never been able to make that make sense. Even if I bring an attorney in to do legal documents, set up a trust, set up a power of attorney, set up wills maybe or whatever, never costs $3,600. And at $250,000, a client doesn't really have enough there to warrant estate planning. So I don't know. It seems like you could, and then take the person who really has a complicated need for estate planning. Are they going to cover that for $3,600? So my point being is just it seems like that the brokerage companies are really going to great extent to raise their fees and disallow people. I mean, what do you do where do you go if you need financial advice? You know, I look at it this way. Advice is the direction that is given to you that you should go. Once you get on the right track, then you look at options. Then after you look at options, you look at recommendations, and then you look at recommendations to see if they're a fit, if you're comfortable with them, and you go forward with the recommendations. What I'm saying is a lot of this is going to take away unless you hit the minimums. And these advisors are compensated based on whether or not you are bringing in $1 million clients or $250,000 clients. I guess my problem with it is that I just don't believe in a model that excludes people. And as financial planners and financial advisors, firms, they should have programs set up to where there's a program for wherever you are. That's just the way that I look at it. So, pretty interesting stuff. Just make sure that if you're paying a fee, you're getting something for it. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday yesterday. Today's Thursday. Tuesday. It's just amazing how time flies. Tuesday, I was talking about the top 10 questions you need to answer for a successful retirement plan. We got through 5 of them. And actually that there are not 10, there's 11. But 10 sounds better. But I didn't realize there was 11 until I got into the information. So I wasn't necessarily not telling the truth. The first one will preserve the principal or will I deplete the principal? And you can go catch this on the podcast at prudentmoney.com or wherever you like to consume your podcast material. We're on every major platform. The second one was, how am I going to leave my assets at death? What's going to happen to my assets? What kind of investment strategy will I use? Number 4, how am I going to pay for long-term care if I needed it? And number 5, do I have a need for life insurance? How much and for how long? Number 6 is such an important one, and we talk about it all the time. This is where I left off. And it's how much risk am I going to take with my investments? And, of course, this depends on what your tolerance for and what kind of investing that you're doing. But I think it's important to have the conversation the right way with your advisor. The typical way that the conversation goes is the advisor says, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, tell me what, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, where do you think you fall on that for as far as risk goes that you want to take? And one spouse typically says, oh, I don't want to take hardly any risk, maybe a 2. And the other spouse says, I'd rather take a lot of risk, I'd be a 9. So you figure out, well, maybe y'all meet somewhere in the middle at a 6. And they both look at each other and go, yeah, the 6 makes sense. Okay, we'll have your risk level at a 6. My question is, what is a 6? Now, I know in my mind what I think a 6 might be. But what is a 6 in the advisor's mind? What's a 6 in the spouse that wanted a 2? That's a pretty big jump. What's a 6 in the other spouse who wanted a 9? And so, but this is what happens. I've seen it way too many times. And so now they're all thinking we're on the same page, but probably not on the same page. You really need to go through and the advisor, and this comes from experience, is that the advisor asks a lot of questions and talks a lot about risk, some of the expectations, how you handle the emotional aspects of risk. There are some people who will say, well, I have no problem taking risk, but I don't want to lose my principal. Well, do you mind taking a risk, or do you not want to lose your principal? Because if you could lose some of your principal if you take risk. And explain what that means. But the emotional factor is what is a key to the answer of the question, how much risk am I going to take? Now, don't shoot at me, but if you're in retirement, it's ideal to be at a lower risk, around a 5 to a 6%, or 4 to 5%, depending on what your withdrawal rate is. But you definitely, if you are there, you've made your money. There's other ways to make risk that you can take to where you're taking more risk, but you can't afford to take a huge hit. That's the point. Let's see. Who is and how much will I involve someone? I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I wrote these a couple of days ago. I think what I meant to write, and I didn't get it all down, was who's going to help with the 401k plan? Who's going to give you advice on all aspects of your financial plan? Who's going to be committed into developing a long-term relationship? Oh, I know what I meant by that. Who is and how much will I involve someone? I do apologize. It's basically who's going to act as the role of financial planner or financial advisor in your life, and how much will they be involved? And what I meant by that was that, are they going to make sure that your 401k plan is in where it needs to be on a quarter-by-quarter basis? Do you have a relationship with your advisor that you can send that to them? Are the fees going to be ongoing, or are you fine with commissions? Is it about developing a long-term relationship, or is it short-term in nature? Very important to kind of figure out what is it that you're looking for when it comes to an advisor. And that's number 7. Number 8, am I going to downsize at retirement? I was having lunch with someone today that we were talking about this. And it's interesting when you start talking about it, because that's when people start to dream about, well, it could be like this, it could be like that, we could move to another place. Maybe we could take our current house and have split it up and have 2 different places that we stay. I mean, there's all kinds of things that come to mind. But downsizing can make a lot of sense. But you have to, at the end of the day, you got to be able to look at it and go, if I downsize, will that make a dramatic difference in my overall financial situation? If it's going to save you $500 a month, probably not really worth you got to do some real analyzing of the numbers. And then number 9 is, what is my post-retirement plan? And I always like to call retirement as the season to give back. What's that look like? What is that defined as? And what you don't want to do is wait until you get to retirement to ask that question and try to answer it. But we've got 3 more to go, and we'll finish this up on Monday. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me? Please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.